Welcome back to my podcast. This is a podcast where we will dive into popular books, explore unforgettable characters, and analyze the themes that make stories stick with us long after we finish reading. I'm your host, Delaney Villa, and today's episode is all about The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. Let's start off with a summary of The Love Hypothesis. It is a romance novel that is centered around Olive Smith, a PhD student studying biology at Stanford. Olive is intelligent, hardworking, and deeply committed to science. But when it comes to relationships and emotions, things get much messier for her. The story begins when Olive tries to convince her best friend that she has moved on from her previous romantic situation. In the moment of panic, she impulsively kisses the first person she sees nearby. Unfortunately, the person turns out to be Adam Coulson, a well-known professor with a terrifying reputation around campus. Adam is known for being intimidating, cold, and extremely demanding in his lab. Most students avoid him whenever possible. However, instead of reacting angrily to Olive's impulsive decision, Adam unexpectedly agrees to help her continue this fake relationship. From there on, the novel follows Olive and Adam as they pretend to date while navigating the pressures of academia, personal insecurities, and growing emotional attachment. What began as a fake relationship slowly becomes more complicated as both characters begin to reveal sides of themselves that other people rarely see. This novel blends romance with humor and explores the realities of graduate school life, including stress, competition, funding concerns, and the challenges that women face within the STEM fields. Without giving away the ending, the story ultimately asks whether people can learn to trust both others and themselves enough to allow genuine connection. Let's do some analysis of the characters. I think we should start with Olive Smith. Olive Smith is a relatable and realistic protagonist because of how flawed she feels. She's very highly intelligent academically, but emotionally, she's pretty uncertain. Throughout the novel, Olive consistently doubts herself, especially when it comes to relationships and self-worth. One important aspect of Olive's character is how much she overthinks situations, which could be very relatable for a lot of people. She tends to assume that other people see her negatively or that she is somewhat not enough. This insecurity affects her relationships and often prevents her from recognizing how others truly feel about her. For example, even when Adam repeatedly supports her and demonstrates care, Olive struggled to believe that someone like him could genuinely value her. Her internal doubts became one of the central emotional conflicts in the novel. At the same time, Olive is compassionate and loyal, which much of the fake dating situation begins because she wants to support her best friend and avoid hurting anyone emotionally. Even though her decision can be impulsive, her intentions are usually caring. Another interesting part of Olive's character is her passion for science. Unlike many romance novels, where careers usually would stay in the background, Olive's academic life is central to her identity. The novel portrays the exhausting workload, pressure, and uncertainty that comes with graduate research. By the end of the story, Olive grows significantly in confidence. She begins to understand that vulnerability is not weakness and that she deserves honesty, respect, and love. Let's do a character analysis of Adam Coulson. Adam Coulson initially appears to fit the stereotype of a cold and emotionally distant love interest. Students fear him because of his strict standards and blunt personality. However, as the story develops, readers begin to see a completely different side of him. Adam's character is interesting because his intimidating reputation contrasts strongly with the way he actually treats Olive. Around her, he becomes patient, protective, and surprisingly thoughtful. One of the reasons Adam stands out is that he communicates care through actions more than words. He consistently supports Olive, whether that means helping her professionally, respecting her boundaries, or paying attention to small details other people would ignore. The novel also suggests that Adam's distant personality is partly connected to the academic environment itself. In highly competitive fields, emotional openness can sometimes feel risky, and Adam appears to have built walls around himself over time. Despite his confidence professionally, Adam also experiences loneliness and isolation. This makes him more complex than the stereotypical perfect romantic hero. As readers learn more about him, it becomes clear that his reputation on campus does not fully represent who he truly actually is. Now let's talk about supporting characters within the love hypothesis. The supporting characters also contribute heavily to the story. Anne, Olive's best friend, provides emotional support and humor throughout the novel. Their friendship feels realistic because they genuinely care about one another while still having disagreements and misunderstandings, as most friendships do. Malcolm, Olive's friend, adds additional humor and energy to the story. His personality helps balance some of the more emotional, intense moments of the book. The novel also includes an antagonist figures connected to the academic system. These characters highlight issues such as sexism, abuse of power, and the pressures graduate students experience in professional environments. Rather than making every conflict purely romantic, Ali Hazelwood includes institutional problems that affect the characters' emotional lives. Alright, let's talk some themes of the love hypothesis. The first theme that is very obvious, that has been talked about a lot, is women in STEM and academic pressure. One of the strongest themes of the love hypothesis is the experience of women in STEM fields. Throughout the novel, Olive faces professional pressure, insecurity, and situations where she feels underestimated by most. The book highlights how difficult academic environments can become, especially for women trying to establish themselves in a competitive scientific field. For example, funding opportunities, research expectations, and professional reputations all create constant stress for graduate students. Olive often is worrying that one mistake could ruin her future career. The novel also explores the imbalance of power that can exist in academia. Some characters misuse authority to take advantage of students in vulnerable positions. This adds realism to the story and prevents it from being just a light romance. Ali Hazelwood herself has a scientific background, and the experience seems to influence that detailed academic setting. The laboratories, conferences, and research discussions help the story feel authentic. This theme matters because it reflects real challenges many students experience in higher education. This novel shows that intelligence alone does not eliminate self-doubt or unfair treatment. Let's talk about the second theme, trust and vulnerability. Another major theme is vulnerability. Both Olive and Adam struggle to express their emotions honestly. Olive hides behind humor and overthinking, while Adam hides behind emotional distance and professionalism. This goes back to how I said before, Adam really built up the walls around him, and it takes a lot for them to be broken down, and Olive, over the time, managed to be able to break down his walls and slowly break him in until she got to see a more personal, different side of him. The fake dating trope works well here because it forces both characters into emotional, intimate situations before they are fully prepared to acknowledge their real feelings. Over time, the story suggests that healthy relationships require trust and honesty rather than assumptions. Olive's greatest challenge is not simply admitting feelings for Adam, it's allowing herself to believe she deserves the care and affection that he would give her in the first place. Similarly, Adam gradually learns to open himself emotionally instead of remaining detached from her. Let's get into the third theme that is obvious in the love hypothesis: appearance versus reality. The novel also explores how people are misunderstood based on appearance or reputations. At the beginning of the book, Adam seems to be a very cold, almost cruel professor because of how everyone on campus described him. However, Olive eventually realized that much of his reputation is exaggerated or incomplete. This theme extends beyond Adam. Olive herself presents a more confident image than she truly feels internally. The academic world in the novel also values appearances heavily. Students feel pressure to appear successful, intelligent, and emotionally stable, even when they are overwhelmed. The story encourages readers to look beyond the first impressions and recognize the emotional complexity people often hide. Okay, we're going to get into our last segment of the podcast. Thank you to everyone who has stuck around. I'm just going to give my quick personal evaluation. Personally, I think The Love Hypothesis became so popular because it combines emotional depth with humor and accessibility. One of the novel's greatest strengths is the chemistry between Olive and Adam. Their interactions feel entertaining and believable, especially because much of their connection develops through small moments rather than dramatic declarations. I also appreciated that the academic setting because it made the story stand out from other romance novels. Instead of using a generic background, the book explores the realities of research culture, graduate schools, and professional ambition. Another strength is the balance between lighthearted humor and more serious themes. Within the novel, there's funny dialogue and awkward situations, but there is also sexism, anxiety, and emotional insecurity that gets addressed. At times, some parts of the fake dating trope feel predictable because readers that are familiar with romance novels may anticipate certain plot developments. However, the emotional sincerity of the characters keeps the story engaging. I also think Olive's insecurity occasionally becomes repetitive, though it realistically reflects how difficult self-confidence could be. Overall, I would recommend this novel to readers who enjoy contemporary romance, character-driven stories,